So, welcome everyone to the first ever Fractal Accessibility Superstar Showcase, though not the first ever Fractal Showcase. I am Elizabeth Cantu. I am currently serving in the Center for Teaching Faculty Director role, and I'm actually going to turn it over to Dr. Eric Hunsinger, who is our Faculty Resource Action Committee for Teaching and Learning Fractal Faculty Chair.
Yeah, thank you everyone for making time to be here on your Friday. Yeah, we're excited about this showcase because, as we know, this year has been everything Title II and accessibility. There's been a lot of conversations about what that means. A lot of us are figuring that out as we go along the way. There's definitely some frustrations when it comes to this. Whenever there's change it could be tough at finding the time and just kind of working through the learning curve. But it's also exciting that we're all focused as an institution, collectively as colleagues, to really make our learning spaces, particularly in the online environment, but really in any modality, as accessible as possible. I love the idea that we really don't have to have our students in the future seek as many or any accessibility requests from Disability Resource Center, because already our course content is going to be accessible. And that's really what this is about, is making sure that our students are ready and on a level playing field to learn what's so important for them to learn in their college experience. So today we have 4 different presenters. I think I'm going to start out with my gamifying accessibility improvements. And then we're going to transition over to Jake Cunningham, who's going to talk about the importance of color contrast checkers and alt text generators. Love that topic. That's a good one. Our recently new faculty, Janelle Yoder, course materials organizers and Canvas tools. Janelle, you serve on the library's OER.
Yes, that too.
Yes. Yeah, fantastic. A little different from this, but yes, they all kind of blend together.
I'll bring it all together.
They're going to bring it all together. I love it. And then Dr. Cantu is going to be talking about inclusive design with open pedagogy. So we're going to have some opportunities for some Q&A within that 15-minute presentations, hopefully. At least I'm going to try and limit my time. And then we'll also have a little bit of time at the end to kind of do a wrap up and close out. All right. Did I hit everything, Liz? Najma?
Yeah. Najma, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Najma Muhammad. I am the instructional designer and the CTL. Not presenting today, but I will be sharing a tech blurb that is related to accessibility, and thanks to Jake and his material. So look forward to hearing the presentations.
Awesome. Well, since you are getting us started, Eric, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so you can share your screen.
Okay.
And then Jake will kind of go, so you all will share Jake, Janelle, and Eric in the in-person room, and then I'll share my screen once we get to mine towards the end.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let me make sure I'm on the right tab. Yes, here we are. All right, so yes, as we talked about, my presentation is gamifying accessibility. Now, I wish I could really say that I developed a video game or something like that to make this work, but it was really the gamification in my mind in terms of getting this work done. It was kind of a challenge that I put for myself while I was going through and making my material accessible, is to see, based on what I've learned so far about my accessibility reports, can I preempt the report back? Can I try and get a perfect score before I run the test on it? And I'm going to show that in both the panorama version of it as well as the Grackle docs. And those are the 2 areas that my course most heavily focuses on and that I have the most experience with. So first off, I just wanted to point you to, if you don't have Panorama already enabled in your courses, it's pretty straightforward to do. So you're first going to click on Settings. And then you're going to click on navigation. And you can see here, I already have Panorama locked into the navigation field. But if you don't see that in your courses, it's probably going to be somewhere down here in the whole list of disabled apps. So all you have to do is take this, the little grip bar here on the side and move it up to the viewable navigation. And that's going to provide you with your Panorama score right here. Now, a good place to start off with is when you click on Panorama, you can get a overall kind of review on where you're at. So the district, the Maricopa District Accessibility Committee, MDAC, recommends that courses get to at least 95% on their Panorama, use a Panorama score. So, of course, always going for that A. I really wanted to see if I can get as high as I could or try to get to 100%. So this is a good place to be like, where are you at in the video game, right? I think I started my journey off at like 68% or 73%, if I remember correctly. And so here they give you kind of a timely graph on how things have developed for you over time. And then down here in the files and issues, this is really valuable in terms of identifying the key common areas that you have, that you might have issues with. So this will tell you like if you have 0% or things like that. A lot of times if you have PDFs or Word docs or PowerPoints, you might find that these have particularly low scores that are kind of weighing you down. So you can investigate those. A lot of times, like you might use PowerPoints from your publisher. I use OpenStax, which is an OER textbook, and I've informed them that their PowerPoints are not accessible right now, and they're working diligently on remediating those and having those be available. So that's part of it. But really, what I would do is then go to the modules and treat it one module at a time. So in here, like we go to M1 Foundations of Economics. I teach economics. And we might choose like this page right here, which is a introduction to this first chapter. Now, I have a green person here, but I can tell you a few things that were starting to create issues for me because I had to fix them so many times. One is this nice clean banner created by friend and colleague Jake, who representing amazing, right? By the way, you know I hired him, right? So feather in my cap.
Excellent decision.
Yeah. So there were some common issues, like for example, it didn't like that I didn't have alternative text for my banner, and that I think I might have had a hierarchy issue with this. With this section, like the title part right here. Here is another example of an image that didn't have alt text. Some of these other examples were they had these images right here of like headphones or movies, things like that, which didn't have the typical labels for it. Also a common issue, I have a lot of YouTube videos, some of which I have and some of which I have taken from the web. And it can't necessarily see that it has closed captioning, or if it does, it may just say that you need to double check that this has closed captioning. And so after running this a few times, and you can do that by clicking on the icon up here, it will tell you, okay, you have two different issues that you need to work on. And so after I did that a few times, again, you're going to run into the same issue over and over and over again because your class layout, if it's anything like mine, are going to be, kind of formatted the same way, right? You're going to have the same type of learning resources. And so then, before I ran the report, I would go in and I click on this banner and click on the image options. One thing, we had to think about is, are these decorative images, are they descriptive for the class, or are they just something that looks nice aesthetically? So that would be part of it. And so I would go through and try and fix the issues before I ran the report to see how many I can fix. And if I could fix them all before I actually ran the report, it was like a little cold star for me. Again, kind of like a lame video game, but it was a way to just change it from being like just drudgery to like, okay, this is engaging for my brain. Another thing I wanted to point out to you is Grackle. And so I have these worksheets for students that I've developed over the years. These are mostly for my in-person students, but they do have an online component, so I wanted to make sure they were Gracklified. A few things I learned along the way. So first off, if you're like me, I live in my personal Gmail account. That's where I have all my bookmarks and quick links that make me just fly through whatever I need to do. And so I am very hesitant to turn that off, but then that conflicts with my Maricopa account. And so I found that when I tried to run the Grackle tool that way, I would get the spiral of death, like infinitely processing, never arriving. The other thing I realized too was this, somehow in the past, I uploaded this as a doc, which I hardly use Word docs anymore, but so you have to go and you have to convert this from a Word doc to save it as a Google Doc, which you click that button and then you have this. So my workaround here
Eric, really quick, are you wanting to share your Canvas screen? Okay, perfect.
Sorry about
Thank you.
that. I'm infamous for not keeping up with whatever the tab is. Okay, so when I go here and I save it as a Google Doc, which I already have here, so that's done. It allows me to do the extensions. If I have it as a Word doc, you'll notice that I don't even have an extensions option here where Grackle Doc would be found. So anyway, going back to here, I would go here and I do Grackle Docs and I click launch and I get the infinite death spiral. So what I did was I decided, okay, I need to take this into a different tab. And so I hardly ever use Edge. So whatever web browser you don't use too often, and I pasted it in. And then I could click, okay, but it's not gonna make me a liar here. Okay. So you can see my previous one was my Google Doc or my Word doc one. It didn't like the extension, so now I can run it. But before I'm gonna run it, I wanna gamify it. I know that there are some issues that Grackle Doc doesn't like. It likes it when I have a header, and it likes it when I have a footer. So I'm gonna see if I can go ahead and convert this title to this header right here. Oops, excuse me. Okay, and then I'm going to take this out. I also know that it likes it when I have an alt text image here. And I know this because this is my 11th worksheet. I've been working on this semester. So ECN 211, macroeconomic principles, banner. Okay. Boom. And then I also know that it likes a footer, like I said. ECN 211, macroeconomic principles. Okay. I also know that it likes it when I have clear headers here. I have a subtitle. Here I have header 1, and then followed by a paragraph. Header 1. We'll see what it has a strange thing about headers. At least I can't quite figure it out, but I think that this is going to be fine. This probably deserves a separate page. Okay.
And then I think, Eric, maybe we're not seeing your tab.
Oh, again, I don't know how to do a tab for the, oh man.
Usually I just do the share whole screen.
They share the whole screen, right? Yeah, that's what you need to do.
That would be under, so we're under Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom. Here we are.
And
Okay.
under, we go to share.
Yeah,
There's the
share
option.
and window. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Here we go. Okay, so are you able to see my screen now, Liz?
We actually see the WebEx browser.
What about now?
Still see WebEx.
You share a window.
Oh.
Oh, thank you.
There should be a, if you go into stop sharing,
Stop
and
sharing.
then under share, is there, entire screen? And that should be, select that screen, select, go on entire screen.
Yeah.
And click share. And now if you go to the tabs, hopefully
Okay.
online can see these other tabs.
Can you see my worksheet now?
I believe, yes, this looks looking good.
Awesome. Okay. So I think I have remediated most of these issues. Sometimes I have tables or graphs in here, but I think I'm pretty clean on this one. So I gamified it for myself. Can I get a perfect Grackle score my first time off? Let's take a look. It's working.
Are you nervous?
I'm not. I'm on the edge of my seat.
We're all watching, no pressure.
I think if there's any issue, it might be the headers, as I mentioned. I still haven't quite figured that out.
Wish there was a quick way to do headers in your PowerPoints, because that's gonna take forever.
Oh, I know.
It's really looking, huh?
It's working hard. I gave it a lot to work with. All right. Well, I don't know. You know, one thing that concerns me here. Oh, so this is okay. Again, I was on the wrong screen. I'm so sorry. I gotta go to Edge, right? That's what this is. Let's run this. You see, I told you it gives you the infinite doom screen.
So you
Doom
run
loop.
it wrong.
Well, and it's because I had a conflicting my Chrome browser had my personal email, and then my document I was in my professional account.
Okay.
So, yep, now we have subscribed. Okay. And 23 heading issues. So here you have to kind of think like, again, I'm not a student, but I technically got a 22 out of 22 checks passed, right? Yay! There was like some, you know, or what do you call it? Like italics for the record book, but I'm okay getting 22 out of 22. So, and again, that's how I gamified Grackle and Panorama to make this kind of very tedious task just a little less tedious. So, and I'm actually over time, so I'm gonna pass this over to Jake, and you see, it's still spinning. Yay, thank you guys, thank you, appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
Alrighty, is it still sharing the screen?
I think we're good, we'll just keep it on that mode right now. Sure tabs.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. I'm Jake Cunningham. I work here in the CTL as a graphic designer, if you don't already know me. And today I'm going to share two tools that I use. One very, very frequently, the other one decently enough. And the first is a color contrast checker. Can everybody see this online?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So the reason color contrast is important to get right is because people who have visual disabilities, whether it's dyslexia, color blindness, even just like corneas, cataracts, really anything that would hurt your vision, the more the background color and the foreground color, meaning the color of the text and the color of whatever it's on, the more contrast there is, the easier that is to read. And so it's kind of hard to figure out just on your own. Luckily, this tool is super duper helpful, really easy to use, and it works off of what are called hex values. Hex values are essentially six-digit codes, digit or letter, that tell the computer what color to display. And so we can, if you know what color, if you already have a hex value in mind, you can plug it in here, but more often than not, you probably won't have one. But luckily we have what's called the color picker. If you go in here, you can play around with this, find a color you like. Or even easier, you can just click this here, and now anywhere on your screen, once you click, whatever's in this little area at the center of that circle, it'll pick that color up. And so if I pick this up, it changes to here. And then it'll give me whatever the background is, in this case, white. So having this color of text on white is a really low contrast ratio. And it'll even give you an idea of what this will look like for both larger text and smaller text. And ideally what you want is a ratio of 4.5 to 1. And when in doubt, just use black on white. Honestly, that's the easiest thing it's going to be to read. But colored text just makes it hard to read. And if you are using colored text, make sure you're not using it as the sole way for a student to be able to tell some sort of information. Like if you're color coding something, don't just use color. I'm colorblind. If you tell me go to the green one, you got green and yellow, I'm not going to know which one to go to. Additionally, you can play with the lightness here. So if you like a color, but it just needs to be darker, you can adjust it until it passes the ratios.
What's the ratio again?
4.5 to 1 is the ideal for, I think, WCAG AA, those standards. And it gives you both for AA and AAA down here. So this is really helpful. I use it all the time as a graphic designer, just to make sure that everyone will be able to see whatever text I put up on the screen. The other one I want to show you is an image accessibility generator. Basically, it just creates alt text. So it's really helpful, especially if you have a lot of images and typing alt text, thinking like, what do I need to describe? How much do I need to describe? This way, it'll spit out a description that you can edit yourself if you feel like it's not fully capturing what you want it to. So you simply browse files. I already downloaded a file. So let's upload this little business monkey.
Good choice.
And you can add extra details about the image down here if there's something specific you want it to capture. But if not, you can just hit create image details here, and it'll work for a little bit. And then spit out a, whatchamacallit, description. Why isn't it doing that?
Refresh the page without losing the result.
See if this one works. There's a full screen version. I don't know why they have two versions of it, but let's try this one. There we go. It says it's running up there.
That's working. I would say that when I was remediating my Canvas pages, you can just drag and drop the image in ChatGPT and have it say generate image caption.
Oh,
And it does a fantastic job. And if you all have it in one thread, just have that tab open. You don't even have to describe what you want. You just move the image.
oh, that's cool. Yeah. So here, this tool will give you two descriptions, a long description and alt text. So a chimpanzee in a yellow shirt and tie sitting on a desk with blueprints holding a pencil. That's pretty accurate. And it's nice and short. Now, it also gives a long description, and you rarely ever want to use the long description. Always use the short description unless it is some sort of technical graph or chart or something that in order to fully understand the content, you need to know every little bit of detail. And often when using graphs or charts, it's better to not put that stuff in alt text and just incorporate that analysis of the graph or whatever you are analyzing into the content itself. That way, it's just easier for screen readers to get to. You don't have to read off the alt text. And that also provides that written description for students who don't necessarily have disabilities, but it's just now in the content itself. And so that's about all I have to share today. Pretty quick. but I hope you all find that helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Stop sharing.
The presentation up here that there was a purple presentation that Liz sent out.
Yeah, it was the
Uh,
fractal showcase. Do you need me to put it in the chat really quick?
If you want to share it, I put my
Oh.
I embedded my presentation into that presentation.
I can do that for you. Yes. Give me 1 second.
Or even just go into it and click on where it says Janelle's presentation or something like that.
I had my slides queued up. So let me just get to the
If
right.
you just go before your slides is my slide.
Yep.
And then it says presentation link. And you just click on that, and there we are. Perfect. Okay, and will this clicker go?
No, because I'm sharing. So just let me know.
Oh, okay.
Let me know when next.
Okay, did you just do that or did I do that?
I
What's
did
the
it.
title? Okay, thank you. All right, so my name is Janelle. I'm one of the new faculty here. I'm a librarian. One of the areas I work with is OER, Open Education Resources. But this is mostly about another thing that is kind of related, and I'll throw some OER in there as well. But I have been part of a new aspect of the library's management system called Leganto, but we're calling it Course Materials Organizer for obvious reasons, because Leganto means nothing to you. And so this is less about meeting WCAG standards, but more about ease of access. And so this is a program that is connected into Canvas. And as I was saying to somebody earlier, we're sort of at the point, we're still in a very soft launch phase of this thing where we're launching it and building training and trying to figure out how it all works ourselves as we go. So what I'm here for is sort of to sell you on it a little bit. And I'm kind of looking for some early adopters as well who can help us work out some of the kinks. So go to the next slide. Okay, so this is, as I said, it's not about compliance, though there will be some compliance components that will come up in here as well. But one of the benefits of it is that you can, as instructors, you can organize all your readings and videos and materials for instruction into one place. And I didn't realize that I guess Canvas didn't really have that already, which then for our students will make navigating back to materials or going to the materials easier. So there's some access. Go to the next one. You can maintain materials across all of your courses. So you can kind of keep like your own little library of your materials in one place. And then you can copy lists, or you can create lists just specifically for a course. You can you can reuse the lists. And you can import a syllabus or a reading list through an AI generator, I guess, and it will create your materials for you. So I've run some samples where I take a listing of reading materials or a syllabus, run it through, and it sets it all up. Go ahead to the next one. All right, let's take a look at this. This is an image here of an iceberg, which is one of those great images. I recognize already that the contrast of text here is probably not meeting that standard. So I'm gonna have to find a better image for the future, but I got this one from somewhere else in the library world. And so we have the iceberg showing here the difference, and I use this when I'm teaching library instructional areas as well. So the surface web, which unbelievably, all that vast information out there available, Google and other surface things, 4%. That is 4% of what's out in the internet.
Crazy.
It's crazy, all that, okay? And we use it every day, and I talk to students about how much access we get there and how we just quickly use it, for everything. But we really want to get our students getting into some more reliable resources. We are trying to get them into the things that the library has, And those things are behind a paywall. So we call that the deep web, anything that's behind the paywall. And these are going to be where your more reliable sources are. And I kind of figured out that some of this is so big, this 90%, because I mean, think about like you're streaming all of your own records that you have to put a password in to get to through your bank, through legal things. All that stuff is there. And our students don't really differentiate between these two things. And I think probably half of the faculty don't either necessarily. I mean, it took me a long time, even as a library student, to really understand the difference between what's available on the surface and what is behind a paywall. Because when we're using it, we get there so quickly by Duo authenticating, and we don't even really think about that because it's such a natural process. But we really want our students to be using stuff that's reliable. And there's a lot of stuff behind the paywall that they have access to and you have access to through library databases and things like that. Also, all of those things that the library has through our database vendors are already meeting the WCAG accessibility standards. Plus, a lot of those, like if you go into things like Gale and EBSCO and ProQuest, and there's quite a few different databases that we have, those articles will have all kinds of additional features. They have translation to hundreds of languages. They have text to audio options. They have dyslexia fonts. You can resize things easily. So those are all accessibility standards. And if you're using library materials, that will make it more accessible both for you and your students. Let's go to the next one. Another little feature that through the course materials organizer is when you're using articles from the library resources, you can open annotate them. So you can, as an instructor, there's two little tabs on this image. There's My Notes and there's Class Discussion. So instructors could, highlight some specific things you want your students to focus on as they're reading this. You can also open it up to full discussion and ask questions and have them input things here. It's possible you've used something like Perusal or Hypothesis in the past to do this. I don't think this is going to have quite as many features as those programs that are specifically doing this, but it does, for beginners, this would be a great option to use as well. You go to the next one.
Is the My Notes private?
The My Notes is, let's go back to that a minute. My Notes is the instructor's notes. I think that, I'm not sure on that. I'd have to look into that more. We can play with it. All right, go on. All right, also another benefit of this for you as instructors is that you can track student usage and engagement with the readings. We've got here a list of readings, and I know, again, this is not a very accessible image, but what we have here is a graph showing a listing of readings, how many students are active, how many students have viewed the full text, the due dates. There's no due dates in that column, but students, it's kind of self-selecting if they're how active they are. They mark it as done. So you just really are never going to know how much they've downloaded into their brains. But this is one indicator for you as an instructor how fully engaged your students can appear to be as they're working in the course. Go to the next one. Okay, so how to do this. I'm glad, Eric, that you showed at the beginning how to get things into your navigation bar, because I don't have that on, because you can see here, you have to add the course materials organizer to your navigation list on the left. And you do that by going into the navigation thing and moving it up in there. Once you've done that, it's going to look like where the B is, where it says create list. And that's where you can start creating a blank list. For some reason, it seems to, this is what we're trying to work out, those of us on the team, the planning team here, it seems like it always starts this way the very first time you go in, but the second time you go in, no matter if you actually have a list or not, because I keep deleting my list and starting over, it brings up these three boxes at the bottom. So instead of, click on course materials, I click on create, and then I have three options. I can create with AI, I can create a list from scratch, and I can create a list from an existing list. So if one of the things we think that you guys might, as instructors, might really find useful is creating kind of a bank of materials that you have in there, and you just pull those into your courses, because I know you overlap some of the things that are in various courses. I find I like doing things an old school way before I just take AI on. So I think it's beneficial to start a new list from scratch to see how that works, so that when you do the AI portion, you kind of know what you're looking for. So let's go to the next slide. And this is not really a full, I'm going to show you where the training materials are for this. I'm just kind of giving you a quick overview so that you have a sense what's involved. So if I start a new list, and where I've circled there in red, search the library, and it brings up the box to the right that just says search the library. And you can do library searches here. You can choose things. I feel like it's easier to have another tab or window open and to really explore what the library has, do a full library search, kind of identify what it is you really want, so that when you go in here, you're just putting in like the title and it brings it up, and you don't have to figure out, you don't have to evaluate between things here. So that's what the yellow tip box is about there at the top, that search the library first and then come in here and pull things in. But it does a full search of the library, and you just select the item that you want. And then we'll go to the next slide. Okay. And then you can see there that first box, the first item that I searched for, the etymology book, is there, and it's something that you and students will view online. Most of the library materials that we have are the online materials. The shelves that you see in the library are just a small portion of what are kind of the tip of the iceberg situation, where that's just a small portion of what the library has available for you. If you want to go back again to the previous slide, we can see here that there are other ways to get materials. So the library, great resources, obviously. But you can upload your own files. Going down through the list here that's below the oval. You can upload your files. I know this is really small. You can add things using an ISBN. So like your textbooks, if you have actual textbooks or trade books that you want to use, you can put in an ISBN there. The import course materials, that's the AI way to use your syllabus to do that. And then there's an import references, but also I haven't really done much with that one yet. And manual entry is a great way to include things like websites that are not part of the library, but just other artifacts that you might be wanting students to see. Let's go forward again. So here's when I did a sampling here. So I have the first item, etymology, is from the library. The second item, Open Education in the Age of Authoritarianism, is a PowerPoint that I got from a session I attended. So that could be like a lesson or something like that. Now, I would be responsible for making sure that meets accessibility standards. The etymology book is going to, through our third-party vendor database, that's already going to meet the standards. I don't have to worry about that one. I will have to make sure I have remediated that PDF. Then I have another one there called Small Ceremonies. It's a book. I added it using the ISBN. It looked in the library to see if we have it. We do not have it, but we could get it through interlibrary loan or something like that. And so it's connecting automatically. It's going to connect, I didn't say this earlier. The course materials organizer is always going to look and see if the library has this. So even if you didn't get it through the library, if you're putting something in and the library has an access to it, it's going to hook it up to the library's version. So that maybe you want students to read this book. It's a novel called Small Ceremonies. Maybe you want students to read that. They might have to find it on their own, or because it's in your list, when your list goes to the library, when it gets viewed by the library staff, we can look at it and say, this is something we don't have. Maybe we should buy this for the library. Or if you have copies that you want to put on the reserves in the library for students to borrow for short checkouts, it can also be added this way too. And then the last item on my list there is a website of Susan Aquariums, because that's interesting. And so, you have various websites that you send your students to for various things. And again, that's not through the library, but it's able to be in this list. So things don't have to be library materials to be in the course materials organizer, but if they are, it hooks them up, which then helps us in the library as we're reviewing stats, it helps us see how much things are being used. So for that, let's go to the next slide.
And really quick, there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
And so it was just directed to me, which is why you can't see it.
Okay.
Would this be a replacement for creating modules that may be course materials and resources?
So modules are still there, but you can organize your reading list into weeks, modules, or any type of thing you want to organize it into. So I think like sometimes you put your content in the modules. Yeah, so it's another organizational option for you. Does that help? Yes, Brittany.
So like if I'm gonna have my students read like a short story or something, I always put that in an assignment.
Okay.
So they click on the short story, they read it, and they do whatever assignment. So would this be like, I can just drop this directly into the assignment from that, or do my students have to go to course materials organizer to get the content?
That is a good question,
Okay.
and that's why I want you to work with me. That's why I want to find out what it's like from the instructor side, like how you organize now. We want this to be something that's useful to you and something you're going to use, not something you have to use because we said so, because somebody said so, but we want it to be useful to you. And or is it something that, the assignment is really handy for them to have the story and the assignment all together, and then maybe also have the story in the materials?
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
These are things that as we're setting it up, and because I don't have actual classes in my Canvas, I just have a sandbox of sand. I'm not able to figure some of this out, and that's why I really want to work with some faculty on this as we're adding this in to see what are some best practices too. Yeah, those are good questions. Thank you for bringing those up. All right, any other questions in the chat? Or
No, and it looks like you did address the question about modules.
Okay, good. All right, let's go to see what's next. Okay, so we've started some training on this. We've got some very basic, we're kind of doing the training at different levels. We have a basic startup training, and right now I'm preparing some materials for the next level of training. So we have this set up. It's a terrible way to access it because you got to go through this whole thing. But if we're going to share out this slide show, then this is a live link that gets you to the library, the district libraries LibGuides to get there. And I'm thinking I should also, or if you just email me, I can get it to you too. But this has, for those self-starters in the room and online, you can chat. Is that what you're doing? Maybe. For those of you who are self-starters, this is great, and we'd love to see, I would love to see you try it. I'd also really love to be involved and sit down with you and go through and help you see how it works when you're putting things in the Canvas. I want to see some of this in action. So, and I know that our CTL would also like to see how this is something that that the faculty can use. Because I know that when you think Canvas, you are thinking, let's go to the CTL and see how they can help us with this. So this is kind of something that the CTL is getting their information from the Gonto, the course materials organizer group of librarians. So they're also wondering what in the world is going on. So we're kind of working together on this. And with all the WCAG stuff that's going on, we are kind of delaying our launch process, but just making it a very soft start thing. And that's why I'm kind of looking for some people to join in and try it out. All right, is that my last slide? I can't remember. Well, I think that the next slide is the help slide. Right, so as I said just now, I'm Janelle Yoder, and you can find me online. You can come see me, I'm in Australia, but I'm really excited to work with some people on this and see how we can get this going, or have some people try it and let me know what doesn't work for them, or what does work, so that we can make it more accessible for faculty. And are there any more questions on this?
Not in the chat, unless someone is maybe typing away. Any questions in the in-person location?
I hesitate. I wanna ask for a show of hands of who's gonna just like say, yes, let's do this. But I'm not brave enough to do that. So. Keep your hands down.
Support you on the staff side.
Okay, thank you. Great. All right, well, then I think
I was going to say, I know Dan, Lorianne from the CTL team, and I, as a faculty member, had mentioned we were interested in joining whatever pilot. So, and then it looks like Nancy Osborne is signed up on the through the chat. So, you've got some people.
thank you, Nancy. Nancy's one of my new faculty, so I'll be happy to help you, Nancy.
Very cool. Yes. So I don't see anything else in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and then move over to my presentation. Thank you so much, Janelle, for that. It's good and exciting to see that we're getting more tools to help us with our course materials. I will share a couple things. Leganto is what I continue to hear is here to stay long term. So I know sometimes faculty, we have trepidation to try something new if there isn't a sustainable funding source for that product. I've been told by many people that Leganto is here to stay, move like long term. So please feel confident. And my reason for kind of jumping on the accessibility superstars is because I felt like with Janelle being our new OER librarian on our campus, one of the great opportunities that people would say for materials that are WCAG 2.1 level AA accessible, that OER allows a lot of flexibility for that. And by OER, I mean open educational resources. Partly because one of the components of open educational resources are that they're adaptable, they can be remixed, they can be redistributed. So because of that flexibility, right, if you find something in your materials that is not immediately accessible for a student, chances are you can adapt that a lot quicker than by going through a third party or a textbook publisher or something like that. We have heard in the CTL and in other spaces across Maricopa that some companies are not feeling the responsibility of necessarily changing and updating all their materials to a Title II compliant standard. So then that puts a lot more pressure on us as faculty and us as an institution to make sure that those materials are accessible. So I'm going to kind of come through this a little bit from a lens of how many of us have fallen in love with an assignment or a course material. And the minute that you heard about this accessibility piece, you felt like, oh my gosh, I don't want to like lose it. I don't want to have to change because this has been such an impactful experience. So I'm adapting, or my presentation today is really kind of focusing on inclusive design. And that's where I'm going to lean in a little bit on open pedagogy because it is through a couple of cohorts that I've been in a fellowship where I've really kind of leaned in more into open pedagogy. And then also the idea of how do I pivot? How do I change something that I feel has been really impactful? And instead of saying I'm going to just toss it out and not do that anymore in my classes with my students, how do I actually use this to, and how do I adapt it so that I am still being compliant and then I'm also continuing to do the things that I love? So, as I mentioned, open educational resources, many times they are no cost to students. I'm sure through Janelle's Leganto course materials organizer, there's a lot of OER out there. And so I encourage you to meet with her. And I currently sit in the OER steering committee at the district office. There's a lot of really great people who are a part of this kind of open education movement. And so then open pedagogy kind of draws on OER because it really kind of places the student at the center of the learning process in a more engaging, authentic, collaborative, and community-based learning environment. So what does all this mean, right? Inclusive design when it comes to our pedagogy is all about access. So how do we make sure that our learners are able to enter, navigate, and participate in the learning and teaching environment? It's all about representation, right? We know that there are sometimes textbooks or sometimes materials that are very heavily focused on a particular group that has made contributions to knowledge. So how do we kind of create spaces for people to really bring more identities, histories, and knowledge so that they are visible and valued, just as what we see in maybe more traditional knowledge texts in our society. It's all about voice, so kind of offering for students the opportunity to express their ideas, their perspectives, and their experiences. There's so much research that shows that all of this really helps with belonging because when students feel that they are valued, affirmed, and psychologically safe, not only does that help them learn, but it helps them feel like they are a part of the science, the knowledge community. They are a part of the learning process. And then the other is equity, right? So, how do we design experiences to account for systemic barriers and redistribute support? You will notice that a lot of this here actually is kind of at the essence of WCAG 2.1 level AA, right? To say, how do we make sure that our students have an equitable teaching and learning experience? I think, Eric, you mentioned how great is it that we can design intentionally without a student necessarily saying, oh, I'm blind, I need something that my screen reader can read, or oh, I'm neurodivergent, I need a better font so that I can better read what it is that you are posting for me. So the idea that how can we maybe be a part of this journey and be a part of this movement to really continue to push ourselves to be very inclusive, equity-minded sort of educators. So I mentioned that my opportunity to kind of really test open pedagogy was through this UN Sustainable Development Goal. I want to share that Maricopa has been involved in this project for about 8 years, and it is international. We've got faculty from Canada, we've got faculty from other parts of the world that are also a part of it. So you kind of go into the summer and you are put in teams, and your goal is to create 3 interdisciplinary open pedagogy, open license assignments that are also renewable. And I'll talk about what renewable means. Renewable means that you kind of post them in a public setting so that people can continue to build on that knowledge and continue to learn from others that have been a part of that sort of experience. So how does this work, right? So I was tasked to create 3 assignments with another faculty member. And I kind of want to show how these assignments, when I was intentionally kind of designing them, it was all about how do I scaffold the work, right? Which we know in a lot of kind of pedagogy practice, scaffolding is a really effective piece of how you help continue to have students build on knowledge, but then also get feedback to help them improve. And so one of the assignments that I did in an interpersonal communication class, that was the class I focused on, was how do I give students an opportunity to learn, but then also practice some of those interpersonal communication skills, and then at the end create a public artifact that they continue to share as a way to bring more diverse experiences and more opportun or more knowledge into the oral history phase. So that was kind of how I structured these assignments with another faculty member. And I've been doing this assignments for almost 2 years now, and some of the artifacts that students have created are just fascinating. So this is the assignment that I've grown to love. I love that it really helps provide students an opportunity to build their knowledge. It really does a good job of helping my students move from kind of foundational learning to higher order skills. And then it gives an opportunity to make the assets and the artifacts that students create. It's been beautiful to hear from some students like, hey, because of this assignment, I actually interviewed my grandmother. I didn't know that my grandmother was part of the farm worker movement of California. And like this gave me an opportunity to really like have a different conversation with my grandmother than before. I've had students who are interested in medicine and they interviewed someone in the medical field. And as a result of them creating a little video, they said how they felt like the upskilling of being able to tell like an oral history of someone and actually like practice how to like edit audio and all that, that gave them like this content, like sort of creator sort of angle that they're like, oh, maybe I'll do this like as a side hustle, or maybe I'll try something because they enjoyed just doing something creative in such a kind of in a different format than just writing a paper. And then, of course, for those students that do still like to write a paper, they can. The idea here is that there is kind of author and student choice and how it is that they package up that final oral history artifact. So how does this idea of open pedagogy kind of align with the design elements of inclusive pedagogy? The fact that in many ways my students are creating resources, incorporating their voice, they're part of community knowledge integration. You'll see that one of my boards has like 70 oral histories. And so many of those are stories of people here in Arizona, people here in the West Valley. Um, there's diverse perspectives, there's co-created content, and there's peer teaching, because one of the things that I added on after the UN Sustainable Development Fellowship was I wanted students to do a peer review. One, as a way to sort of give them an opportunity to kind of really intentionally sort of see what other people are doing. And so again, this is how I see all of open pedagogy. And I fell in love with this assignment. I've had so many students say that they have really appreciated this assignment. And I'm like, well, then how do I basically make this WCAG 2.1 level AA accessible? So my pivot has been, how do I also kind of give an opportunity for my students to see accessibility not just as a check mark, but maybe also as an opportunity for them to professionally develop and upskill. We know that some of our students may work in public institutions. We know that some of our, once they are done with our time here in Estrella Mountain, maybe some of our students are going to be graphic designers. So if we can have them also learn a little bit about these kind of guidelines, that's going to give them a professional win, right? In terms of when they are career ready, looking at interviewing, they have an opportunity to say, these are some of the skills that I did in my, college classes, and I now can make content that can be posted on public websites, or that can be public and posted in public institutions. So that was sort of my little bit of my reframe. And then, so my reframe of the peer review process was, how do I maybe have my students be digital accessibility consultants for each other? And then that takes some of the burden off of me, because I wanted to just kind of show one of these oral history ones. This was a student this was the student I mentioned who was a student who was very interested in medicine and then did kind of this oral history project. It's beautiful. But let me show you the full board. It's got 70 assignments. And what's challenging about this is that once a student posts, and if I have it part of the learning process, like the peer review process, it has to be WCAG 2.1 level AA. It has to meet those guidelines, right? So how do I maybe take some of the burden off of me to make sure that students are doing also the public posting and making sure that this is WCAG 2.1 level A accessible? And how do I maybe then again use this as a learning opportunity? And I will share, I got some of this idea came from Dr. Tom Tobin, who was he was the District Day of Learning consultant who came in and did the keynote for the Day of Learning in January. One of the things he mentioned was that how do we, when people feel very overwhelmed about this work, how do we include students in the process of this work? And so it was kind of me kind of connecting these different dots to think, well, then how can I maybe do this within my assignment? So I know we want to give time for questions, but so as I mentioned, my students, what they will do is I'm approaching it as, once they have posted their materials and they get that peer review, they are going to say that they designed the project to meet the standards, and then they are going to be doing they're going to serve as digital accessibility consultants, and they have this checklist where their role is to kind of go in and check a peer's post, not just in terms of the content, but also in terms of these kind of standards. And then in many ways that helps them upskill. I think I heard from Eric, you say how once you were kind of gamifying and using Panorama and you were seeing what the red flags were on and on and on, that was giving you like a, oh, this is how I learned the skill, right? And so in many ways, kind of putting some of that on our students as a way to kind of continue to build. And then you'll see here that even the tools, right? I know that Jake speaks very highly of the Web AIM, WebAIM color contrast. That's one of the tools I'm incorporating, right, for students to use as a way to check. And so this is, like I said, just a way for me to kind of move from things that I do, things that I love, and then how do I maybe bring in some aspects of accessibility and help me not only meet the compliance standards, but also help our students be career ready and continue to upskill in their journeys with us. Questions?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So maybe at this point we open it up for questions, and I do want to say that we see this as part of a movement. This is part of a culture change, and a couple of things to highlight. Right, this work does not have to be in isolation. One, and then two. We have about a year. So while the deadline does say April 24th of 2026, our system is taking the approach of giving everyone until next academic year, so until spring of 2027 to fully remediate their work. So think about those little incremental wins that you can make, whether it's adapting an assignment or adapting a module, or maybe looking at some of the Leganto course organizer and maybe including some new teaching opportunities through our library resources. Right, that the idea is it's a journey. And so just so everyone knows, next week we'll be doing an official, but we wanted to launch that. We want to continue to celebrate accessibility journeys all the way through the academic year. And so you'll see a call from FRACTL and the CTL to basically show off, give us a quote, give us a picture. If you feel that you are kind of making small wins, share those with us, right? Because that's how we can kind of build and grow together. So be on the lookout for joining our movement and celebrating our accessibility journeys.
I love the teamwork in this, Liz. I love that, it just seems so daunting to me sometimes, but to know that we're all in this together, and like we're doing this as a collective is comforting. So thank you for that.
Liz, are there going to be props for the photo taken?
We haven't fully done it, but I think we will. I've got some props.
Yeah, and I want to redo my my wig so I can look like Jake again.
Nice. Yes. Well, and we can have fun, right? And like that's the thing is we know this is a lot of work. We have to celebrate it and let's have fun in the process.
So are there any questions from any of the presenters or just in general?
Yeah, really quick, there was a comment made that the tips that were presented, was that in the this one, the audit, the 4 tips presented would most likely satisfy a large amount of accessibility issues to be resolved. Yes, that is correct, right? So going back to if you look at those, is it, and that's the poor piece, which I won't get too much into, but the idea of is it operable? Can our students perceive the material? Is it robust, right? These are sort of the 4 big buckets. And going back to a checklist, right? I don't, this is how a student would audit a person's work. And then the comment made to me is, and the last one would be PowerPoint and reading order. I would say it would be anything, Nancy. It could be reading order of a PowerPoint, of how you design your course page within Canvas, how do you design the document that you are creating for students in terms of a course material. The reading order and navigation would be for anything that you're creating.
I had a quick question. This is for Nachma and Jake. What if we wanted to really highlight something for our students? Historically, we would literally put in and highlighted background. That doesn't seem to be specifically contrast enough. Is that, should we bold it, italicize it? What would you recommend?
So you can still highlight the background as long as there's enough contrast. The best way to do it is just bold. Bold. That's the easiest way to emphasize something. And stay away from italics.
Italics?
Yes.
Stay away.
Yeah, still use them if they're required for like citations when it comes to like MLA or APA. When they're required, but italics make it very hard for people with dyslexia.
Oh, I didn't appreciate that.
You also
And if I
want
can also, oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to throw in there also to avoid underlines too, because they resemble links.
Hyperlinks, yeah.
and underlining text makes it hard to read descenders like lowercase y, lowercase g. Since it literally goes through the glyph, and if you have dyslexia, it's already hard enough to like distinguish certain characters. So adding lines through them just makes it much harder.
I like it. Bold is better.
Yep.
There you go. That's how you remember it. Like that.
Another good tip.
I could have been a madman.
Another good tip is to stay away from serif fonts too.
Oh.
So the serif and sans serif, serifs are the little think Times New Roman. That's a serif font, whereas Arial would be sans serif. So it doesn't have the little extra doodads on the letters that make it look nice, but those can actually make it hard.
So sans serifs are good. Serifs are all.
Yep.
And meaning.
And Eric, I'm going to send out a blurb, and that's one thing I mentioned. That's I didn't present it today, but I am going to share a blurb, and it's going to highlight some of the things that Jake did in one of his workshops. So that should be coming out sometime soon, and it covers all those things like the sans serifs, the bolds, the color contrast, etc. So look for that sometime today.
There was a person who the direct message was sent was the contrast issue in needing to find remediation in color. We did provide, and there will be a link to the WebAIM. That is a place where you can go check. And then the request was a comprehensive list of these things. And by these things, do you mean like the bold, the italics, like everything that was just shared out by Jake and Najma? Okay, yes. So maybe we can put some tips together, bringing all of this. That was
Yeah, if I
my
can
ask.
I'm sorry, Liz. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what's going to be in that blurb today. Basically, Jake put together a nice presentation and the recording. So I'm going to include that resource in there so you'll be able to refer back. So that'll all be there.
And I will share maybe one more that could potentially work as a checklist. This was created through the course material subgroup, so you may just give me a second to find it. But there was also a bit of how do you create sort of a guide as to like how do I prioritize all of this? So I'll try to find it really quick while we continue our conversation. Other questions or other needs that we can work towards helping with support you in this work?
I'll ask a question, maybe Jake can answer this. So, my iceberg image, which I got somewhere else. I want to remake it so that it's better. I think it's got a Creative Commons license on it or something. What do you recommend I use for that?
So I'm assuming you'll just take like the background, like the existing iceberg, and kind of put your own words on it.
Maybe, yeah, that's not what I'm thinking.
In that case, I know I use Illustrator for stuff like that, but it's also got a pretty steep learning curve. There's a free online tool called Canva.
I use Canva, yeah.
That can work pretty well. Could also put it in like Google Slide and then do letters around that way.
Because I was just wondering if there was like something that is there an AI that I can drop it in and say, create this, but with better contrast?
AI often has a hard time with text.
Okay.
So it'll spell stuff wrong, letters are a little funky, it can just end up being kind of hard to read. It's not quite there yet with like perfectly created text. Within it, just like within an image.
Yeah.
For some reason, some weird.
I haven't messed with the AI stuff myself.
So we can, and Najma, if you haven't fully scheduled your tech blurb, maybe we can add this. So this is just a priority checklist, things that you can start in terms of the journey. Going back to, I think Linda, you said this can be so daunting, right? We're already so busy. There's already so much demands on our time. And thinking about how do you create those incremental steps or how do you build on those steps. So here is those accessibility elements. So color, images, text readability, format, structure, tables, links, media. These in many ways is basically what a lot of the standard and guidelines are, just a little bit more digestible, if you want to say. So this would be maybe something that could serve as a checklist as well, just while you are doing this really important work. And the question that someone asked, should they, if you just direct it to everyone, the questions, that way everyone can see them, that would be great. So it looks like Najma will be including that. So for those of you that are here with us today, you know a first glance of what's going to be in that tech blurb. Other questions or things that we could provide and in support of this work that you all are doing?
I can add something. Additionally, in the CTL, we're here to help you as well. Each Thursday, we have office hours where you can just walk in and get help from one of our team members from, I believe, 10 to 1. Correct me if that's wrong. Okay, that's me right. You do that. You can also schedule whatchamacallits, meetings with Dan or Najma.
One-on-one office hours, open office hours.
Yeah, Dan's more for like audio video, like captioning videos, stuff like that. And Najma's is more general purpose. And if you have any questions, feel free to email the help desk, ctl@australiamountain.edu. We'll try and answer your questions as quickly as possible.
Thank you for that.
Well, since we're kind of wrapping up our time here, please send us any feedback that you have. Here is a QR code, and this is, FRACTL, Faculty Resource Action Committee for Teaching and Learning. It's kind of the advisory board to the CTL. We work very closely with Eric, Najma. Eric and I meet weekly. And, the feedback that you provide here helps us to sort of see how we can continue to support and address. There's even a very important subgroup within FRACTL that is looking at digital accessibility and tools. So, we're here to help and support so that we can continue to advance teaching and learning on our campus. So, thanks again for joining us. Eric, you want to finish us off today?
Again, thanks everyone for taking time to attend, and spread the word about what you learned today with your colleagues, so however you see them, and let's help each other out. And then enjoy the weekend, most importantly.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.